The opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of the host or the producers. This is not a test. You are listening to Universal Connection Radio, where everyone is on the same frequency. Hi, and welcome. I'm your host and producer, Roxanne Lynch Sartori. I'm a hypnotist, master life coach, law of attraction practitioner, neurolinguistic practitioner, master Reiki healer, and author of 2 books, How You Think is Where You Sit, and 12, The Stars Align, co-written with Frank Bennett. UCR is where I bring all my experience and the experience of others together. We merge onto the same frequency, which of course is universal connection. For those of you who are interested, we have a Tumblr, a blog, and a Facebook page, all of the same name, Universal Connection Radio. And here you can stay up to date on our guests or just connect to the universal connection. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is our 3rd episode of Universal Connection Radio, and today's episode is titled, The Truth is Always Simple. Our guest today is Stephanie Marian. Stephanie is an international counselor, teacher, and writer. Stephanie's message comes from a passion to help others move beyond fear, to be free to live the lives they truly want to live. Stephanie has taught workshops all over the world, being a citizen of the universe and an adventurer of life. Hi, Stephanie, and welcome.
Hi, Roxanne.
How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for welcoming me to your show.
Oh, I'm very excited to have you here, Stephanie. You're quite the lady.
So are you, Roxanne.
Thank you. Thank you. I was thinking it would be wonderful to start our conversation with the title of today's episode.
Okay.
The truth is always simple. Would you elaborate on this, Stephanie?
Yes, I was thinking about that myself the other day, and the truth is always simple because I think anything that comes from the heart and anything that comes from the soul always is. I think we complicate things. Mm-hmm. So I find that if we don't analyze and we get out of the way of ourselves and our head, and especially our fear, it actually always comes down to something very, very simple. And the more people that I work with and the more people I talk to, the more commonality I see. And that commonality can be summed up in usually very simple statements. Like, we all want love. Mm-hmm. We all seek recognition. We all seek to be heard, which all boils down to wanting love. And it's always simple.
I agree with that. I definitely do. There's something about simplicity which rings. It rings so true with everything in life. in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. And you had said that you have that actually on your business cards.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody a couple of years ago, and I was having a very, well, what would you call it? A kind of mentoring session with this person, and those words came out of my mouth, and as I heard them, he heard them too. Not just the words, but the resonance of those words. And I realized that was something that really spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you should use that. And I said, I think I'm going to, because it feels like one of those essential statements that I could make about what I do and what I feel about life.
Yes.
And so that's what I seek to do when I talk to people, when I show them themselves. Essentially, that's what counseling is. All I do is try and cut away the noise and reduce it down to what they're actually saying to themselves. And it's always simple.
Absolutely. As a life coach, I completely understand what you're saying there. People,
Mm-hmm.
They know the answer themselves. They just need to be shown where to look.
Yeah, and sometimes we're a lot like that person walking around with our glasses on our head. They're always there, but occasionally we need to pretend we don't know where they are and search for them and seem to lose them, but they're always there.
It's so true. It is true. I had wanted to ask you a question, and I personally, through my experiences, have found answers to this question, and I'm just wondering if they're similar to yours, to what your answer would be. And it's believed that everything in our lives comes from one or the other, love or fear. Now, could you explain to the listeners either limiting or limitless results of each and how it affects people?
Ooh, that's a big question. I like that question. Okay, so I agree with you. It is my experience too that every emotion and every experience, every thought and every action is born from either love or fear. And now remind me, Roxanne, because I want to loop back to where I start. Don't let me get lost in my meandering.
Go right ahead.
And where I want to loop back to is how fear actually is love, which is an interesting one because I've been thinking about that.
That is interesting.
Okay, so essentially, if you look at all of your emotions, for example, and you look at things like anger and jealousy, insecurity, anxiety, a need for control, possessiveness, what else? That covers quite a lot of the
It
key
does
parts.
cover a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that is all born of fear. It's born of limitation, and energetically, and every emotion has an energy. Einstein said this, Nikola Tesla said this, others have said it, I'm saying it now too. That's contraction. That's the energy of contraction. Mm-hmm. So when we experience those emotions, we literally, let's say, shrink. Okay, within ourselves, there's a kind of shrinking, a kind of holding in very tightly.
Absolutely.
You can see it as a block. You can see it, if you like, as stones in a river. There's a million different ways of seeing it. I see it in people, and I feel it as like a denser kind of, like a little pocket of density, let's say. Okay, so then there's love. And love, what I want to say about love is a lot of people misunderstand love, and they think it's about acting loving, but love is a state of being. It's not an action. It can be expressed through compassion and kindness, and a big one, a very significant one for anyone who wants to grow and understand themselves, is acceptance. That comes from love as well. Is there any more that I want to add to love? No, I mean, that's a good place to begin with that. So everything that comes from there is expansion. It's limitless. It has no conditions. and it cannot be put in a box. So those are you asked me if I agree with you that everything comes from those two places, and I totally agree with you. But what I've been realizing, I see love very much as a door. I don't see it as everything. I see it as a doorway, and through what we allow ourselves to, through allowing ourselves to grow and expand, we activate our heart center more, and that is the doorway to something truly limitless. And that something is very neutral. Now, looping back round.
Yes.
How do fear and love connect, and how is fear love? Well, okay, like this. I have to use my favorite quote. I have to use that.
Go for it.
It's the Rumi quote, and it's that we are not a drop of water in the ocean. We are the entire ocean in a single drop.
Yes.
So if we work with the idea that we are all creation, if we are all that creative energy, and we are all, let's say, I'm going to use the word, I don't like the word very much, but equal in that. We are all a part of that. We are all the entire ocean. Mm-hmm. That being the case, then fear must be part of that.
Well, considering that everything has its opposite, I believe that hate is not the opposite of love, because hate is of fear. Yes? Yeah, definitely. Well, fear is fear. But what if, and let me just put it to you, what if we accept it all? What happens to it? Well, that's a good question, actually. What happens to it? When you accept it all, it flows. You're not stuck.
You neutralize it.
Yeah.
You neutralize it. It doesn't have the energetic charge anymore.
Very true.
So there is something about fear with love, and everything is part of everything in that sense. So it has a purpose, but I don't think it's something to be eradicated any more than a crying child who's upset is to be silenced and stifled. Rather, they wish to be heard. Now, that isn't to say that you let fear run rampant. No, what I would suggest is that you learn to recognize the two within yourself, the two feelings, impulses, densities, whatever you want to call it, and to become the observer of those things.
Oh, yes. Well, that is the key, isn't it? When you can step back and observe upon yourself and the world in general, us, and say, okay, I need to understand why. Why am I doing this? Why is that person doing that? Not to be over analytical, but just to be able to understand an iota, just a tiny little bit. We're capable then of stepping back from judgment, which is, once again, a form of love when we're not judging. So that's interesting. The fear and love. That's very interesting how you put those two together. I like that, actually.
It feels quite right for me. But then as I'm listening to myself, it also sounds very esoteric. And what I think is that to get down to the truth is always simple. Well, the simple truth of this is that we all, I have never met a single human being yet, or heard of them, or read about them, that did not feel at root some greater need for self-love. And so love is the doorway. It's the doorway to our greatest potential. You just walked me right into the next question, and that was brilliant. Was I holding your hand? I hope I was holding your hand.
You were actually.
Excellent.
We as guides work with people who are mostly in a state of dis-ease. That's why they're looking for this help. And I am going to ask you, what is the one common self-belief that those who are in this state of being have? And you mentioned...
It's that. Yeah.
Yes.
The belief is that we're not worthy of love. But what I want to say there, and seems incredibly important to me, and something that comes up time and time again in my work, is that, okay, so I say those words, they sound simple and people understand them, but what we're not, I think, fully grasping is that every single experience we have, every single experience is giving us the opportunity and is created by us for us to be able to love ourselves. And so when we are experiencing, say, for example, painful rejection in a relationship, or difficulties of some kind, tensions, misunderstandings, whatever it may be, it is always a message to love ourselves more. Nobody else holds that. We hold it. So every event is a trampoline bouncing us back to ourselves.
So you believe that we are the creators of our existence as such, our lives, what we're living.
I do. And people get kind of caught up with that. Sometimes they have difficulties with that. But here's how I see it. Yes, we are the creators in the same way that a certain type of energy, and please don't quiz me on this because I really didn't do well with science, but basically a certain type of energy just creates electricity, right?
Yes.
Okay? Use that as an example. I hope that's a good example. Yes, we are the creators in that energy creates energy of the same. Like will draw to it like. It's a universal principle. It's a philosophical principle. It's a scientific principle, but science hasn't caught up to it yet to be able to say, yes, we've proven this across the board, and we're comfortable that we've proven it. But it is being proven every single day, in every single person's life and in everything that exists. Whatever energy something holds is what it will draw to it. And if you don't draw directly you're always drawing the same energy. You'll either draw it in, like, for example, fear will draw to it fear directly, or fear-inducing events. So somebody that holds a fear, for example, you're going on a car journey and you're nervous of getting into cars. Well, you may be in the car with someone else who has the same type of fear, and you could say that you drew that to you with that sort of energy of limitation that you hold. But it could also be that you have an accident. Which is, it's not an example that's going to make people very happy to hear, but literally that's how it works. But when you start embracing limitlessness and you realize that we're all creators in our own lives, you see it a little bit differently.
I have to agree with you on that, because the law of attraction is that it's bringing to you exactly what you are feeling. So if you're feeling fear, yes, there will be more fear. There are ways to stop this. Now, would you, as a counselor, as a guide, a teacher, how would you suggest people stop feeling this fear? How can they, first of all, identify it, and second of all, stop it?
Well, okay. Self-awareness. So that's the first thing. I think one of the most profound things that was ever done for me or given to me, I haven't had much in the way of, what's the word? Mentoring or teaching to come to this point. It's come, I've had tons of it through life and through experiences, but not directly. But there have been some very pivotal moments. And there was one with a gentleman who was essentially telling me one day, when I was going through a very difficult time many years ago, decades ago, in a relationship, and I was upset, and I was describing my feelings to him, and he said to me, okay, just sit there with that now, and so I want you to feel what you're feeling. So I did, and I was experiencing feelings of pain, of feelings of rejection, and underneath it, although I wasn't looking at it that way, definitely a sense that of lack of love, that I was that I wasn't worthy of love and that I wasn't being loved in the way that I wished to be at the time. And so I felt all of that running through me. And he said, now I want you to look at it. I want you to go to the center of it, but then I want you to come to the edge of it and see its shape and its texture, which sounded really weird, but actually that works quite well with me. I mean, I see things in pictures anyway, so I could see that.
Yes.
I could see what he meant. And then he said, now who's looking at those feelings? Mm-hmm. And I looked at him and I said, well, me? I thought he was being a bit stupid, you know? Uh-huh. And, you know, he was being very clever, actually. He said to me, as soon as you do that, you're already a step back from those feelings. And also what it shows you is you are not those feelings. They are not you.
Yes.
So you can choose to experience them or you can choose to observe them. And it's so simple, and yes, it's the practice of every Buddhist. It's a practice of mindfulness, and it has many other names as well in different cultures, but essentially it allows you to be the observer of yourself, of your experiences, and then you realize, hold on, what really is me? It's not these emotions. Mm-hmm. You know, they are something I choose to experience, but they are not me. So then that's the first step, that awareness of your own emotions. I think that's probably a really good place to start. And then just going within yourself as you grow in awareness and having some sort of, let's say, like a look at the thoughts that go through your mind, just to look at them, not to chase after them, not to develop them, and not to judge them, because we do so much of that. We're always rationalizing and judging within our heads, but actually just to observe them. You know, like, oh, I don't look good in that. As you look into the mirror, you think to yourself, well, right away, you know, you've made a judgment on that. Now, looking good or not looking good isn't the important part. What is important is to become aware of how often you do that. So awareness again, looking at our story, looking at the story of our lives, which comes from usually becomes very firmly cemented within us in the first 3 years, certainly, and by the first 5 years of life, we're telling ourselves a story about who we are, and it's often based on experiences we've had, on messages we've received of lack or limitation or love from our families.
It goes right back to the limitations again and the fear, which is given to us as love. That's the funny thing about it. Be careful. Be careful, honey. Look both ways. It's like it's ironic in so many ways. You know, we're given this love, but it's based on fear. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult for us to step back and see. Don't you agree?
I completely do, and so you asked me how one can release those fears, and what I help people to do is to be able to see them and to really understand that mechanism within themselves, and then basically sort of destruct themselves in order to reconstruct, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, and so that's the process they go through, and then build themselves up based on what they come to feel is the truth as they start to connect with what is really their essence, who they really are as a person.
It's wonderful work, isn't it? I love my work, and I can tell you're very passionate about yours also. It's beautiful.
I love it too. Yeah, I love it too. It's literally like watching, for me, it's like watching people that didn't know they could fly to jump off that cliff and fly. It's really exciting for me.
It's empowering. It really is. It's beautiful. I cannot believe this. We are 25 minutes in to our conversation already, which leaves 5 minutes for the... Yes, surprise. The last question.
Okay.
And as you know, I ask this of all of my guests. Universal connection. What does this mean to you, Stephanie?
Okay, well, that's easy. I thought about that. It means freedom, actually. I was thinking that the answer that first came to me was love. That we're all connected and yada yada yada. We've heard that before. But actually, personally, for me, it means freedom. And freedom and love are exactly the same thing for me. But I want to use the word freedom because it has exactly the resonance that I want to convey. It's limitlessness, and it's the connection to everything, absolutely everything.
Beautiful.
So that's what it means for me. See how easy that was?
That was very easy because I know that when I let my guests know I will be asking you that question, they're like, oh, really? Do you have to? Why this set question? That was so easy. That's beautiful. Freedom. And freedom it's the ability to be and do and experience everything.
Yeah, it's that flow without any limitation.
Yes.
And it's the constantly expanding expansion.
Which we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is.
Everything is. This has been a lot of fun. I'm so sorry that we didn't have more time. Hopefully we can, well, you know what I mean. Because
Yes.
when we chatted before, it was an hour and a half. And we should have just recorded that and then, put it on the radio.
Yes, we could have done that.
We could have, but this has been wonderful, and I'm very much appreciative for you coming on here and speaking with me, and I love The Truth is Always Simple. And we have just under 3 minutes, and there's one other thing.
Oh, good.
You had mentioned to me.
Like a surprise.
Well, no, you had mentioned this to me. Your passion to put across a certain thing, and that was accessing the great love that we all seek. And you touched on it. And if you would like to finish up the show, we have about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Just speaking about that.
Okay. Well, what I would invite everyone to do is to look at every single thing they feel and every experience they have and every thought as an opportunity not only to bring them closer to that, but to understand themselves through it. And so when we start seeing life like that, we realize that all of the pain that we experience and the challenges are also opportunities to bring us to that. It will allow us to start to release that which holds us down. So for me, that is my message. Anything is possible from that place. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been wonderful.
I've really enjoyed it too, Roxanne. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was Stephanie Marian, and Stephanie's Facebook page is called Avanti Walking the Path, if you should be interested in finding out more about Stephanie. So, please feel free to check her out. And I am going to sign off now, saying stay tuned to the frequency, and thank you so much for listening to the show. Next week we'll have another guest. Bye-bye.